I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move we approve the agenda for tonight.
Motion by Champo,
Second.
second by Hart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes from June 26th, 2024. Any additions, deletions, changes?
I approve the minutes for June 26, 2024.
Okay, motion by Champo,
Second.
second by Hart. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, comments, correspondence, concerns from the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak? Steve?
I didn't have a chance to write anything up for the meeting, and I wasn't the last one. But, I had a number of experiences with, zoning regulations and height limitations, including over about 25 years, having about 6 of them go wrong. I might be able to offer some insight into what Steve's been working with. The other thing I was gonna ask you is if you wanted some input on, your historic overlay thing. I've been to building design conferences for about the last 20 years, and I've sat in a lot of discussions with architects, developers, material suppliers, and everything else over that very subject of how do you keep the historic feature or the architectural feature and still go and have energy efficiency. A lot of the materials available, a lot of the skills that aren't existing anymore, and how do you get to that point? And then you'd be able to offer some insight into that. And I was also going to say that based on some of the conferences I've been to, I think your goal is right dead on, and I think like Denise and Champo, they were correct. You have to do it right. And some of the things that I've heard about is people do the right, all the wrong things for all the right reasons. And one of the things you might want to consider is what you may not be after is a historic preservation district, because that actually brings in state law and building codes and a lot of other things. You might be after an architectural preservation district. And that's a bit different, but I've heard about that on the East Coast, where a true historic preservation district like in Boston, they're actually looking to restore those buildings the way they were in 1700, 1800, whatever. And an architectural preservation district, you're looking to, if you build a new building, make it look like a new building. So,
Sure.
some more information I can get that to you. if you'd like.
Yeah, as that comes up on the agenda, certainly like to get input from these people. Is there anyone else in the public on Zoom? Anybody raise their hand? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to 6, discussion action items, comprehensive plan.
Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about on this one. Some of it I will be sending you to do as homework, but I want to start with the map that was mailed to you, okay? So, and I just gave you a copy right now. So I had went through the map. This is the current land use, so it's not current zoning, it's current land use. And I had them change some things. I see she missed a couple things at the top there. But, and then Mitch had given me 2 changes, but we want to go through this and see if it's accurate, because this then gets put into our comp plan. And then, we base our zoning off of that, and, you know, we strive to have X amount of percentage commercial, so much residential, so this all becomes part of a bigger puzzle, okay? I know at the top, at the north end, you'll see some little red boxes. I did tell, Nicole or Natalie, I'm sorry, at Bailey, that those are no longer commercial, that they did go to, short-term rental. So I don't know why she left them as commercial, but that's something I can have her look at. Mitch did catch the fact that, the Peach Farm should all be commercial now. And lot 2 on Fieldcrest is zoned commercial, and it was previously used commercial, but now it's a short-term rental, so that should go to residential. Other than that, I think we caught everything. And I know you probably haven't had much time to look at this, but I was just curious if you had any thoughts or changes on anything.
So question on this, so we're differentiating between residential and multifamily.
Yes, so residential would be like single family residential, multifamily would be condo apartment buildings.
Where would a duplex fit in? Would that be considered multifamily in this?
I believe so, yeah.
The trend in zoning is to not have residential across the country. Does it make sense to collapse that down to a single residential, and then that way we're not actually changing our zoning code there, but it gives us that flexibility in the long term if we choose to.
So what we wanna do is we wanna see what's out there now, so we can make those decisions now. Because we're gonna see where multifamilies, we're gonna see where single family, and then we're gonna make that decision. Should there be, when you're doing the zoning map, then should there be should they be separate, or should they be one?
Can I ask why the trend would be no residential?
It's not real residential, it's just not having it be R1 only. Not be single family home, that is what's happening all over the country.
So you can have a multi-unit next to you in a single family neighborhood?
Yes,
Can I ask, I know you said the Peach Garden, what was the other property?
I wouldn't go into that detail,
Oh, okay.
we've got the tape, it's,
Okay.
trying to keep you minutes on a little bit, but. I'll make notes on my map, Janelle, and then give those to Bailey.
Okay,
It should be red.
If there's nothing else anybody has in mind, if you think of something within the next couple days, maybe let me know. Otherwise, at the end of the week, I'll just send this over to Bay Lake to update, so.
I have another question.
Sure.
Have we annexed that, Logerquist property?
We have, yep. Yeah, I see too on, the sports complex. Oh, no, that is, never mind. Anyways, yeah, if you have any changes, let me know, okay? And then we'll get that over to Bay Lake. We will get another kick at that cat when the plan is all in final and draft form. We can look at it one last time. But at least this gets us into that draft form. So the other thing, we want to talk about is what was handed out tonight, which is the SWOT analysis, which is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And we're gonna look at what was in 2003, see if we still agree with that, or if we want to add anything to it. And again, if you have something after the meeting, during the week that you want to add, just shoot me an email, we'll add it to the list. We do look at this again, it's just that this gets us to that draft document that we need to look at. So strengths, we have, so the one that that Sydney gave me from Bay Lake was under the economic development chapter. For some reason, in the 2003 plan, I don't think we did a SWOT analysis on everything. We only picked certain things we did the analysis on. So we can't really compare 2003 to 24 all the time. So in this one, we're going to be focused on the economic development. Strengths, good variety of businesses, very diverse. Do we agree that's still true?
I would.
Yes.
Year-round business hub of Northern Door.
Surprising to see that in 03, but it's certainly more true now.
Good sewer and water system.
Yes.
Yes,
Well-maintained streets and public properties.
Yes.
Natural beauty of the area.
Yes.
Waterfront and marina.
Yes.
Strong business group.
Yes.
Yep.
What's a strong business group, Sister Bay Advancement Association. Okay, lots of recreational facilities.
I don't know if that's it. I think we've got some.
It's
certain-
not.
So we have some, I don't know that it's a strength, I think I wouldn't call it a weakness either.
No.
Would it be lots of recreational opportunities?
I have a, hard. I
Well,
think
there's
that-
a lot of natural recreational opportunities with the state parks, the water.
But we're talking within the village, right?
Within the village.
Should I just cross that off completely?
I think so, I don't think it's a weakness at this point, but I don't see it as being a strength.
Good community leadership.
I would say yes.
New library, it's no longer new.
So I don't want to scratch library.
Scratch that. Or you have to
How
build a
about-
new one.
How about local library and local fire department?
Yeah.
I mean, that is an asset to have that right in your community. I would even add the post office. That's a big thing for economic development as well, to have that post office here. Let's talk about our weaknesses. Okay, any other strength you can think of right off the top of your head?
Medical clinic is
Yeah.
now here.
That's a big one, yeah.
I wish it was more than just. It'd be nice if it was like a walk-in or something.
I think the nursing home and the facilities associated with that. Do you agree?
If you look at it in the lens of 2003 to now, I have a hard time saying that it's a strength, because it isn't. It does not, the trajectory does not.
Well, it's
Inspire your
changed
confidence.
since they sold.
It has about a C- grade, am I right?
Yeah, it's,
And it's got a fraction of the people in it.
I just haven't heard good things about it.
No,
from
I
local
don't-
People.
I don't know how to hang up the community chat
Yeah.
on that. I mean, the medical center, yes, I mean. It used to be so much more, and it's hard, it's not as a shadow of what once
I'm
was.
just not sure where it's going.
What about the childcare center? And again,
Yes.
we're
Yes.
keeping
Yeah.
the lines of economic development. Let me push you a little on this. So from an economic development perspective, you have a place for people to bring their children so they can go to work. The nursing home does provide a lot of jobs. What about NWTP?
Does not provide a lot of jobs.
No, it doesn't, but it
It
has
provides
training and it's a
Training,
I think it is an economic asset.
yeah,
I mean,
we can have meetings. there.
again, thinking back to what it was in 03, that was. How many times, or how much complaints there was about NWTC, just vastly under.
Yeah.
Not taking care of the village.
Okay. So we will cross off lots of recreational facilities. We're gonna add information about the library, fire department, post office, medical clinic, childcare center, and WTC as strengths for economic development. Okay, let's talk about our weaknesses. Back in 2003, believe it or not, they said not enough parking, especially downtown.
I don't think that's true anymore. I mean, if you look at the amount of parking that's added there, there's parking available all but 2 days a year. You look on.
When you have a festival weekend, you're never gonna have enough parking. So that's gonna be an issue. And like you said, during the week, you're gonna find a place to park.
I'm done, Mill, you'll find it.
So take that off.
I think so.
Everybody else feel that way? That's such a controversial one, because I hear all the time.
I know,
It's too
it-
congested, you don't
it
have
just-
enough parking.
Well,
I think
you
if
have
you're
to
willing to
figure,
walk, it's fine, you can find a place to park.
but what's a trade-off? If you provide all this excess parking. In the wintertime, it's excess. But what's a trade-off? You're gonna have to lose something to gain that parking, so what's more important?
And the more parking you have, the more everybody else is gonna have to walk, because you have to walk past the parking.
Take it off.
I don't
see a
think
note.
there's enough parking downtown. There never has been.
No, and there never
Are you
will
ever going,
be.
so,
How about this, since I can't agree, what if we say too much congestion downtown?
yes,
We agree
I
with
can get
that?
on, I can get on board with that.
Can you get on board with that, Ron?
Yeah,
There's a couple different ways that can get solved.
And they get creative with the parking, the spot by the chop that says no parking and it's all marked off, there's somebody parked there, and it's not a handicap sticker.
Yeah, that one, the park says dealing with. Okay, so back in 2003, we said one of our weaknesses, we need affordable housing, workforce, seniors, younger people.
So true.
Same,
I think it's.
For
worse.
different reasons,
it's worse.
but to be fair to ourselves, it's not just a Sister Bay problem.
No,
Okay. Street and intersection safety issues, they talk about Mill Road, and we cited Mill Road, Country Walk, etc.
That still seems to be hearing me think about the last conversation last week at the board. I don't know, in particular.
I'm getting depressed, we haven't made much progress. So let's keep going. Need to bury overhead utility lines.
We did that.
Scratch.
We did that, yeah. Good job. Need a place for industry.
Don't feel like that's true for the village. I mean, since,
What kind of industry would we have here?
A lot of cities have industrial space, you know, it's kind of hard when you're this far away because to get truckers to drive up here, to get workers to come up here, to shipping costs, et cetera. Some places just are not ideal for industrial. At that time, apparently, we thought we wanted that. Do we still want that in here?
I don't think with it would say though. I mean, if you think about the things that we've had, the village spent a lot of money on getting industry out of the village with that quarry.
No pedestrian link between uptown and downtown Sisterville.
We're inching towards that, but I think it's still an issue.
Can I ask where they are? Where's uptown?
See, I think that, I think that's one to strike because you now have
You're
the
up
sidewalk and you have the trail.
Downtown now.
Okay.
It's still not sufficient.
Literally
Like,
up.
there was a sidewalk at that point, but going up that hill, I mean.
I thought the sidewalk came out in 2008. I think you have that back in 2003. I don't think there was anything, if I remember right. But you now, like I said, you have the sidewalk, you have the asphalt trail. Now, the asphalt trail, that's really just in uptown. But
That's
you do
also
have a
not good in the
sidewalk.
winter time because it's used by snowmobiles. So then it's not plowed and you can't walk it.
Yeah. But we do have the sidewalk.
I still don't think they're sufficient. I mean, like, maybe not say uptown and downtown, but it's okay, walk from here to the beach farm. That is, or to Jerry's Flowers, or the apartment complex. I mean, there's people that are trying to go, there's still not
How about
sufficient.
instead of no, inadequate?
I would, yes, I would agree with that.
Cause it's half and half. Halfway up the hill is finished and then it stops by
Yeah,
stuff.
A inadequate bike and ped linkages between uptown and downtown Sister Bay. Are we okay with that?
do we even need to say uptown and downtown, or just say within Sister Bay? I mean, I think that we could be more general.
I think because it's looking at economic development, they were looking at the business districts, so that's probably
Sure.
why.
Okay.
But I think in the other ones, that's a good point. It should be more general. Restrictive sign regulations was seen as a weakness.
I think that's a strength. That word, strict on signage.
Yeah,
I don't-
have some sort of,
I don't think it should be on here. I don't think we're that restrictive. I think we've got some common sense things, and I think in about the last 20 years, we've had some real big missteps trying to be less restrictive that went very poorly for us. So I think we just strike it entirely.
How about this? Can I offer this? How about as a strength? Effective regulation. And as a weakness. Excessive processes.
well, what's considered restrictive?
Pretty long. I mean, right, for economic development or business, you try to get the permits in the hands quicker so they can do commerce quicker, they can employ quicker, they can get on the tax roll quicker. Some of the processes do take a long time. So regulations, strength or weakness or take off.
I don't, if we want, maybe we could say cumbersome regulation or non-streamlined. I mean, I think that even then as a stretch, I don't agree with restrictive science regulation being on there. I don't know
Okay.
what we need to replace with anything.
I'm gonna take it off.
Take it off.
Lack of year-round workforce and businesses. Which is counterproductive to the strength, which is your own businesses. It's kind of, you're saying it's a strength in one area and weak.
I don't think that's our weakness on there. I think that Sister Bay is very much it is the year-round hub for Northern Bell County.
I think one of your weaknesses is you do not have year-round full-time jobs for your residents. You know, people are reliant on summer seasonal jobs, maybe 2, 3 of them,
That way.
and in winter comes, they don't have any.
It depends on what industry you're in. I mean,
There's
Most-
definitely not enough.
yeah, there's not enough.
And if you had enough, you might have a better chance of finding housing too, because you can afford it.
Yeah, higher income. How would insufficient number of year-round full-time jobs?
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. That would be reasonable.
I'll send this out to you guys and you can do some more thinking and get back to me, you know, we can always change it, we're just starting on this draft. There's another sheet yet, okay? So physical capability, we're gonna talk about utilities. So these are the sections where we didn't have the detailed list like we did for economic development, okay? So in utilities, we said a strength is electric services are provided by Wisconsin Public Service. The village currently has a public sewer and water system. Right? So I'll keep going and we'll just, when we're done, we'll discuss it. Weakness, electrical service at the northern end of Door County Peninsula is not always consistent. The area has occasionally experienced periods of low power. The village sewer and water system does not serve the southern part of the village.
So I don't think that low power is, I think that to me sounds like we're saying there's brownouts. I haven't experienced brownouts. I've certainly had power outages.
Yeah, it's, different, it's like when there's severe storms, we have power outages, but
Everybody does.
yeah, everybody does. So I would say, yeah, that's not really true.
I don't know. I mean, like it's,
Low power?
I could see the outage. I mean, like after I've had probably 5 outages of more than 5 days since I've lived here in the last 28 years. Which is quite a bit for being in the village, so I don't, but at the same point, that's WPS, like, that's beyond the scope of what we're going to be able to influence, so I don't know if it's worth, seems like we're splitting hairs over something that's not under our purview.
I agree, it's,
How about as a weakness, we delete that first line and we keep the one that says the village sewer and water system does not serve the southern part of the village.
That is a factual statement.
Okay, I don't know if it's a weakness, but it's a factual. Do we want to say anything about the lack of natural gas? We're reliant on propane.
I mean, how could you even consider natural
You're,
gas?
you're not gonna get it here.
Yeah.
no,
But is that a weakness?
No,
I think it's
Okay.
just,
I
I
mean,
think 20 years from now, it's not even, nobody's gonna think about it.
Okay, would a weakness be that, I don't even know if this is true, maybe propane costs are higher because of transportation costs, I don't even know if that's true. I'm just trying to think, I want us to think of all utilities, not just one. Maybe road, maybe it doesn't even matter.
I guess what I would say is 20 years from now. The natural gas network is not gonna expand in Door County, because it doesn't make sense, people are moving away from that in general. So. I don't think the cost of propane is gonna matter that much either.
Okay, how about this as a weakness, and again, I'm just thinking out loud, okay, we have the village sewer and water system does not serve the southern part of the village. How about the fact that the weakness is we do not have a dryer and we have to carry our sludge to Green Bay,
Yeah.
which increases our costs. That's a weakness. I think that's a weakness.
I'm thinking as a vulnerability, but I suppose weakness, just it exposes us to more fluctuations in cost.
Okay, so the strength electric services are provided by Wisconsin Public Service. The village currently has a public sewer and water system. I would say it has a very good public sewer and water system. It is a very good one.
Can it handle the future?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's a good point. I think we should add something about the capacity. It can handle a lot. We could even take on Ephraim and we still have space to spare.
We've discussed that whenever we talked about up at the wastewater treatment plant, like we need to save room. And the general idea is we should save room, and then we talk to the utilities, like, no, we can handle a lot more in that footprint without even and making any changes.
Yeah. Let's talk telecommunications. So back at the time, strengths were telephone service, local and long distance, are provided with digital switching provided. There are no major differences in the quality of telephone service between the village and other municipalities within the county. Cable and fiber optics are also available to the village. The weakness, cable and fiber optic services do not reach to all areas of the village. Wow.
When's the last time you heard the term long distance? Um,
Digital switching. So I think the strength is, we're getting fiber optic.
I also think that something that back in 2003, not everybody had cell phones. I think that's something that's also worth mentioning is we do have pretty decent cell coverage within the village. I mean, except at the admin building. Literally, that's one of the only areas because they're tucked behind the bluff. But that is vastly better than it was 10 years ago.
So strength would be, we now have fiber optic, or we will by the time this is done, or we're getting fiber optic, okay?
I also think we should say something about having all major wireless carriers have a presence in the village.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Wireless providers, you said?
Carriers, we'll call them carriers.
And then we have, internet and fiber optic. It currently have internet in many areas, right? And fiber optic planned. And good cell coverage, right?
Mhm.
Our weakness. During peak periods, the cell coverage is not as reliable. Right?
Yeah. The cellular systems can't. It's gonna be true anywhere.
Peak periods or in certain locations. Cell service. Inadequate or cannot, what is this the right word for that?
Doesn't have the
Capacity?
Yeah. And also capacity or coverage.
Anything else on that, guys? Telecommunications? Okay, transportation, strengths. The village has access to Highway 42 and 57, which are a pathway that provides highway exposure to the village. Weakness, the village does not have its own access to rail or air service. The village is geographically isolated on the end of the peninsula.
I would also say as a weakness, we don't have a daytime shuttle for seniors or people that just don't want to drive or can't drive.
Well, we don't even have Uber or Lyft.
Lack of mass transit. Is that
Yeah,
Public
Yeah.
transportation.
lack?
Yeah.
I think of lack of, like in pedestrian lanes.
and that too, yeah.
Strength, I think one of the strengths is we have been implementing standards that meet ADA requirements and are thoughtful of our aging population. And we've changed our rules to require sidewalks to be wider. It's a good transportation thing.
Mhm.
The shuttle, that's a transportation thing. Right? It operates at night, but that's a good thing.
But that's only for
It's not,
bars to hotels. I mean, if I needed to catch a shuttle somewhere, where would I have to go to get it?
Well, it has a series of stops, like if you were going to the grocery store, like at 5 or whatever, you could get there by the shuttle. Depending where you're picking up and dropping.
That's what I mean, yeah. So it's based more for tourism because their pickup spots are located where the people are staying.
So a strength then, if you look at it that way, is it helps reduce congestion in the downtown area.
I think it's worth mentioning,
Well,
it's a strength,
that-
but not
that does.
alluding ourselves to saying this is really mass transit. It's not.
I wish we could somehow encourage Uber drivers, I see that all the time on Facebook, people are like, don't you people have Uber up there? And I'm sure it's easy enough for someone to sign up and do it if they wanted to do it. And they probably do quite well during this time of year.
So part of the problem is Uber and Lyft and those companies, they dictate the rates. And it is more challenging to, I think one of the big issues they have is keeping them busy, where if you're gonna give somebody a ride from Fish Creek to Sister Bay, you're making money one way. And then
Well,
you're
yeah.
going back the other, so it's, if there was money to be made, people would do it. They're,
Probably not enough demand. I mean, we're busy all the time, like they are in the city.
yeah, I think it's kind of a chicken and the egg sort of thing. Well, you need to have enough Ubers for people to be able to rely on it, so that people assume that it's not there, so nobody even tries to do Uber, so there's no drivers. I think if we could. You'd have to get to a
Well,
critical
even if
mass.
you could encourage the drivers to stay within the village. You know, so they weren't going from here to Fish Creek or here to Bailey's Harbor, maybe if each village would step up and have somebody. I don't know.
I think 10 years ago, there was a Uber, I think Uber was the only incumbent, I don't think Lyft existed at that point. There was some sort of gathering at Husby's to try and get people to do it, and there was quite a bit of buzz and excitement about it, but it never materialized.
But one of our strengths is our marina. A lot of people come and go through that one. 20,000 in 1 year. Right, labor force. Everybody's good on that one?
Yeah.
Labor force characteristics. The unemployment rate's 4.4%. When this was written, 2003 within the county are low. The employment rates for the county grew approximately 5% over the last 10 years. So strengths, labor force characteristics. I think we just take that out. Net fluctuates, that's outdated as soon as the statistic changes.
I mean, the local labor force characteristics, I don't think that is a strength of ours. I think it's one of our bigger weaknesses. Going around and there are places in the middle of summer that are closed for 2 and 3 days a week because they don't have people to work, so.
I think our strengths are, the J1 visa opportunity. That we're able to get visa workers in, that's a strength. And then the other one is the diversity of our workforce. You know, we have teenagers, we have senior citizens, we have people that speak many different languages. I view those as strengths. Anybody else?
Workforce is surprisingly diverse for Sister Bay located.
Yeah, little community. Weaknesses, the village is experiencing an aging structure shift due to the baby boomers reaching retirement age. Current and future labor shortages are due to low numbers in the age group of 16 to 24. And due to the large number of seasonal businesses within the area employing and needing large numbers of young workers. In addition, more of these younger individuals are moving away to find year-round employment and housing opportunities elsewhere. So everybody remembers back in the day, we all talked about brain drain, right? Kids grew up, they went away. Not so much true anymore. We're attracting a lot of younger families. So there may be some truth to that weakness, but I don't view that, I don't think it's as big of an issue as it was. One, people don't have that many kids to move away. Two, a lot of them are coming back, or we're attracting different ones.
Well, what is our average age in Sister Bay? It's come down.
61.4.
That's down pretty substantial in the last 5 years.
I can't remember, but
Well, if we could,
I think so, because we do know that we're having more young people coming in.
if we could provide affordable housing, we'd have a lot more younger people
That's a
moving
great
and staying in Sister Bay. That's a big one, because just in my circle, I know young family members that want to come back here. They grew up here to work and do their business and stuff, but they can't afford the housing, so I can't find it.
That's true, so an affordable housing market could attract more workers. It's a great point. Weakness again, you don't have the full-time year-round worker jobs for them. Okay. Commercial site availability. And again, not, you'll see changes here where we don't have the strength and weakness on this again. So the comment was the village has space for commercial development along Highway 42, Sister Bay, and along Highway 57. That's what they said at the time. There's one lot available, or I'm sorry, there's two lots available that I can think of on Highway 42. One of them is very large and I do not believe can get access. So we do have a shortage of commercial space on Highway 42. On Highway 57, you do have some lots that are on the outskirts of town. I believe sewer and water has to be extended. So you don't have it anymore. You don't have that great available commercial space, which means you need to plan to make sure they have access and sewer and water so that you have it available should somebody want to bring a business to your village. You want me to capture that in a sentence for that?
Just to talk through that, I mean, like, that's where the second, or TID two is on 7. And we do have some options to, we've got some mechanisms in place to.
Yeah, a lot of that TID two, is not zone, a lot of that TID two is not on sewer and water,
Yeah,
and then,
so I'm saying, could we capture that in there and say, yeah, we've had some foresight to make it more possible for that to happen?
yes. The access concerns are causing an issue for some of our businesses. We do have one right now that's having an issue, and as you know, that became a discussion with the apartments as well. When we were looking at the condominiums. Okay, programmatic capabilities. At this time, the village has approximately 130 back in 2000, 130 acres dedicated to commercial uses, or approximately 18% of its developed lands. Business within the village include retail, restaurants, hospitality, wholesale, manufacturing, storage, etc. I think that's just a matter of updating that. I think one way, I think there's a need for more, but I think it's an opportunity to stress reuse, right? So when you start running out of space or land, there's an opportunity for redevelopment. The Chris site is a great
It's
example.
a huge property.
Yep, the golf course, not that, I don't think a lot of people would want to see that commercial, but you know, that Chris site, that's a huge redevelopment opportunity. And we have seen a lot of redevelopment where people are tearing down and rebuilding. So I think that there is that opportunity for redevelopment as long as we do not lose our character and turn into Anywhere USA with just new buildings, right? All right, available government services. The village has adopted comprehensive plan, subdivision plan, zoning ordinance, floodplain ordinance, shoreline wetland ordinance. We don't have that. Police services are provided by Door County, fire and ambulance services are provided by the joint department. Postal service provided by the post office, government assistance comes from a village board, plan commissions, village administrative clerk, and various planning agencies who assist the village on writing grant applications and monitoring these grants. I think we can add some other stuff in there too, you know, like, there's a lot of agencies that we coordinate with, like the Economic Development Corporation, for example. So we do have access. I think the internet has made it easier to coordinate with a lot of different agencies that we have not had before. Okay. Specific inhibitors to economic development. Infrastructure does not exist in planned areas of commercial growth. That's true. Rail and air services do not exist within the village. Sure, we need them. The geographic isolation and lack of a redundant telecommunication and power system contribute to specific inhibitors. We're taking care of that, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that the power system being redundant, like, places don't have that.
I think it's, cross off the telecommunications, right? Because that's no longer an inhibitor.
Right.
I personally don't find the power system an inhibitor.
No, I think that would, power system has gotten a lot better. I mean, if there's a lot more reclosers and all that isolate bad parts of the grid, so. The problems.
I don't even view rail and air service as a inhibitor to economic development. We don't come by rail anymore.
Never had it.
Air is-
No, we haven't sold it.
And the infrastructure does not exist. Let's face it, it's sewer, water, and in some areas, roads. I'll make it sound better.
Roads and pedestrian access, because that. Pedestrian cycling access has a major impact on. Economic growth.
Training programs, strength. The village has access to training from UW Green Bay, the UW Extension Services, and Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. I think right now it's NWTC. And I think the strength is because we are in a technology age that we can get as much training as we want. Because we have that capability.
Mhm.
Weakness, many of the formal training sites are between 30 minutes and 2 hours by automobile way. I don't know that that's an issue anymore, because I don't think people are doing that.
No, once in a while you do have to go there, I guess.
You know, I look at conferences, the money government used to spend on conferences and training. Now you sit at your computer and you turn the button. You know, it saves so much money for government, everybody, I'm sure.
I'm also looking at that 2 hours, thinking it's not 2 hours anymore, it's an hour and a half. 31 hours and all three,
Yeah,
Skip the
highways are
second.
better.
but it's striking the whole thing.
Okay, quality of life. This is pretty outdated. Housing prices, approximately 38% of the village residents paid more than 30% of their incomes towards housing costs in 2000. In 1999, the median household income was 33,224. Based on the household income median, a median housing payment would be $830, or approximately a home valued around $130,000 at 6.5% interest. As of May 2001, the median price of a home in Northern Door County was $243,000 and approximately $200,000 in Liberty Grove. I will update that. But I do not think that that's a positive thing for quality of life. Right? I actually did just go through all of this, and I wish I had that here. When I was working on the grant for the village hall, I went through at all the numbers in the median household income. Very sad. Aesthetics, the village consists of a small residential and business community with bluffs and open shoreline along the Bay of Green Bay. The abundance of shoreline and sloping terrain make up much of the village's prominent views. I think we're missing
Should we mention?
character, stone buildings, character, mix of old buildings. I don't know,
Waterfront park?
quality park or Attractive parks.
Yeah.
Attractive parks, what do you guys want? Charming downtown, what do we feel that?
Charming? I don't think it's charming.
I think if you look at it compared to some other downtowns,
Clean,
I'm looking at it compared to what it was when I first started coming here.
would you say it's clean? I think that's
Oh,
very
yeah.
attractive. A lot of money spent keeping this village clean, so, I think. Overall, I think it's very well planned and has developed in an orderly fashion. Well, what do you guys think? I'm just throwing it out there.
it's,
I'll see historical,
Features?
corner of the past, and,
Okay,
yeah. Historical features and corner of the past.
how about the setting? You're in the middle of a town that has not been overdeveloped. You can go, you know, if you're in the center of town, you go 1 mile either way and you're out in the country. I think that's pretty good quality, what? How much value? I value that.
I mean, there's hard to have, in my mind, that has to do with density and appropriate locations for density. So ultimately, that's the difference between downtown and country.
Okay, environment. Within the village, there are still areas of woodlands, farm fields, miles of waterfront along the bay and some wetlands. The waters are open to fishing and boating. The village has ordinances and plans protecting and enhancing the environment. The water supply in areas without municipal water supply is subject to degradation due to shallow soils, fractured bedrock, karst features, and high groundwater contamination susceptibility. However, there's not as many cherry orchards or land spreading to threaten those wells anymore. So although they are susceptible, you don't have the threats that you once did.
You don't have an active golf course and you don't have an active quarry. I mean, Patrice, they had blasting there pretty regularly, I'm sure you would. I didn't feel it where I was, but I'm sure you noticed that.
Yeah, there even was like a dust problem in our neighborhood. It's
Mhm.
weird.
You have minimal floodplains, very little. I think you do have sufficient recharge areas, which is wetlands. You feel you have biodiversity in your plants and your animals, your birds?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's,
Lots of deer.
It's cute.
Coyotes.
I have something for aesthetics. What about the night sky?
Yeah,
Environment, you're very close to parks. State parks. And wildlife areas.
Mhm.
Education and healthcare. The village is within the Gibraltar School District. Healthcare is available in Sister Bay as well as Gibraltar and Sturgeon Bay. Dental services are located within Sister Bay and Sturgeon Bay. Chapter 5 of this document provides a detailed list of the discussion. I'll just update that. I think we know what we, I'll just update that, okay? Everybody okay with me just doing that?
Mhm.
maybe mentioning in the BTC in there, since it's in the village.
Sure. I'm also gonna mention telehealth. You have access to telehealth now that you didn't have before. Evaluation of environmentally contaminated sites. According to the Wisconsin DNR list of leaking underground storage tanks, there are 10 sites listed within the village's Sister Bay. This is a site where a tank has contained soil and or groundwater with petroleum, but has since been cleaned up. There are also 7 spill sites listed. Spill sites have experienced a discharge of hazardous substances that may adversely impact or threaten to adversely impact public health, welfare, or the environment. Spills are usually cleaned up very quickly. Lastly, the village has 2 sites that are designated as part of the DNN Wisconsin DNR Environmental Repair Program. These sites are sites other than the less sites that have contaminated soil and or groundwater. I will just update this for you guys, okay?
We have no lost sites anymore, but there's been development.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not aware of any brownfield project that we had here where they came in and they cleaned up all the soil away and then developed as a different use. I mean, sometimes you'll see like, a service station, for example, where they'll do that and now it's an ice cream parlor or something. But,
Over at Mill and forty two, there was a village on that property where the dog was.
Yeah.
There was a service station there, and we had, because that was part of what we, sold.
but I don't think it was a brownfield either. Yeah, so.
And what about the one by, that is no longer, that, yes, by Ken Church's place.
Bumper, bumper.
So we'll look at them, we'll see which ones are less.
And that probably falls partially into Liberty Grove, because that's where Lars has his little resort down there.
The gas station where we broke.
I know
What,
the
in
Alamo
Liberty
had
Grove?
some kind of issue, but they cleaned it up.
I'm sure.
By country law.
It's usually the underground.
Yeah,
place that-
we'll take a look at that, because there's also the mixing sites that we have to look at, some of the cherry, what they do with cherries. I know on the Wiltsey site, but we had to do an environmental review on that one. Because that was used for cherries and it was also used for dumping. And dumping that. So, okay, so on this list, you guys, we do have more, and I'm gonna email this one to you to look. So what we have are goals, objectives, and policies. And based on what we just talked about, I'm gonna take a crack at updating it, and I'm gonna send it to you guys to look at. Think about, think how you wanna change it, and then we'll bring that back next meeting, okay? It's just too much for you to go through tonight and then burn you out. Okay,
We're good on.
yep, we're gonna know.
So then next is 6B, the B3 overlay discussion, recommendations.
So on the height limitations, I haven't done any work on this. This was brought up by, members, but I think we need to talk about I see a big typo on that step head in there. Lineations. I think we need to talk about what is our goal, what do we want to achieve, and then I can help you craft the rules after I know what you want. But I don't know what you want, in this one. I heard a comment that, we just don't want to have these big towering buildings anymore. I heard the comment that we don't want to be driving down a tunnel. So you want the water side lower than the inland side of the highway. Let's have a discussion, so I know what to prepare for you.
So as it stands right now, the code does prevent somebody from putting up a building that's in the view shed. I mean, I thought that came up. I don't know if that was a code thing or was just discussion when the Door Hotel was being built.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. What there is, so you have the 35-foot height limit, and then if it's an excessively large structure, you have some extra setbacks that it goes back. But, yeah, I mean, you could build all 30, if you could get it approved, you could have 35-foot high structures all up and down the downtown business district.
It's in 3 stories.
That's like the Door Hotel.
I don't know how tall the Door Hotel is, but
From the street, the door is taller than.
I think what we really need to do is be careful that we limit height on the water side of the street.
Yeah,
Like
otherwise.
Wild
that's-
Tomato and Confectionery, Deli, that whole side, if they build something 35 feet or higher. Or like the Door Hotel, it's gonna be like driving down a tunnel, no one's gonna get to see the bay or the
Well,
water.
and then that's not, that Bayside isn't an asset any longer.
No,
so the concern is really on the west side of the highway.
west side, yeah.
So don't focus on the east side, our focus is on the west side, correct?
I think so, everybody else thinks.
I mean, the east side's pretty much
Besides,
used up.
yeah, these sides kind of.
Well, then somebody could buy one of those properties and put a 3-story up there, and I think that would change the feel of it.
True.
I think it's about for Sister Bay, it's about the water. And it's that view of the water, which is gonna be less important on the east side, but still factor, because if somebody else is, I don't think we should impinge on somebody's existing view of the water.
Right.
Now, maybe we wanna do more than that, but I think that should be our baseline, saying, okay, I don't want somebody to put up a building that completely blocks the view for somebody who already had it. I don't know if there's some sort of slope we could figure out, because the further are you off the water, the less important it's going to be. I mean, if somebody was on the other side of Spring Road is not, that's residential, but should say you're on the backside of Spring Road, well, 30 feet on Spring Road would not be nearly as objectionable as 30 feet on Bay Shore Drive. And you're talking maybe 100 feet apart, but is that fair to say?
I think it's fair.
Except that if it's gonna start interfering with residential areas, I mean, isn't Spring Road all residential?
So one side of Spring Road is B2 and it's been zone B2 for a very long time. I mean, like, on some level, if you build residential next to a business district, you can't be surprised that there's a business district there. It's not like it was changed after the fact. And I'm not even saying that, I'm just trying to make a point of saying, okay, well, you put it here, it's not objectionable, you put it here, it is, we're trying to figure out where that line is. There's some gray area in there, but in my mind, that would be a lot different if you had the same building. The setback that is not right on there, does the distance from the road matter, distance off the highway?
What are the limits of the heights of those homes going up on North Bay Shore? Ones that
35.
have,
35.
Average, 35 feet average,
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
but that's an average roof line height, isn't it?
No, we don't average on it. It's finished grade. I do think there's things, you can measure your height from. Like in the transition district, the historic overlay we were talking about, you can measure your height from roadbed grade. That would have eliminated what you see out at the Goki site right now on Luna View. You can measure it, not average it, and instead it is just from grade to peak of roof. A lot of,
so if
there's,
they're graded up, you mean then it's that much taller?
there's a lot of ways to measure grade. Some people do average grade, like Nate was saying, some do pre-existing grade, some do measure it from finished grade. You can do it from roadbed grade.
Where I was thinking I was thinking that it should be from the existing grade as of a date that we choose, because you can get that information within a few feet pretty readily.
Yeah, it's
But then
on GIS.
You also talk about the roadbed grade, and I think it should be the lesser of the two of that, so. Sometimes the road does get built up a little, and there's reasons for that that are completely valid. Well, I don't think that we want those buildings on that road to also be that much higher. I think that would be my inclination if I'm thinking about what's happening right now. That is.
Yeah, it's a shame that we allowed those 35 feet, new homes to be built on Bay Shore. Talk about blocking the water view. The Mangan house, the old Bob Burns house.
You're gonna keep seeing more and more of that because they're buying them up.
I know,
tearing
and
down
it's,
the-
And that-
we're
it's-
gonna end up like Malibu where there's all these big tall houses and no one can see the
You
ocean.
know, there's water over there.
But that is something that's beyond the scope of this, just to make sure I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
like-
we're talking just about downtown right now, I understand that.
I'm saying we should make sure we
Yeah,
address that.
yeah, I mean, again, this,
So in the downtown areas, I don't know if you have specific ideas or if you want me to do research and come back with some view shed ordinances or. I think just knowing that the goal is the west side does not block the view shed of the east side. You make the assumption the east side is 35 feet high, which tells you what to do possibly with the west side.
I think that's a good place to start then.
Mhm.
It's just a starting point. That's why we have 6 months. We need a starting
Yeah.
point.
Steve, did you say you had some thoughts on this
Um,
or some experience? Even better?
experience deals mostly with the height of the structure and how you measure it. And the way this got started was at one time, the town required 30-foot maximum structure height. The question was, how do you measure that? And originally it went off the center of the road. Then if the road is at an angle, the lot is over here, what part of the road do you measure off of? And if you're measuring off the road, then they decided, well, there should be more to it, so they decided on something like the average mean elevation at the base of the house measured something distance off the road. And obviously, nobody could calculate that, let alone measure it. And so in our town, the building inspector was supposed to catch this, the plan commission was supposed to catch it. And you didn't catch it because the plan commission got an elevation for the structure, but that's not tied to the center of the road. So they finally went and decided what really worked was measuring from the tallest exposed face of the structure from the ground at finished elevation to the peak. And then you've got something that the contractor or anybody can measure rather than trying to tie it back to the center of the road. And it gets even more complex and interesting when the road is here and the lot slopes either down this way sharply, kind of like a field crest road with some of those STRs, or it goes straight up on one side. And how do you measure that? And they had a couple instances where the road, for the road to where the house was, probably road was 15 feet and maybe 40 feet. And so then they build this great big huge 3-story monstrosity there. It might as well just be a, multi-story office building. That's why they just started going from the structure base at the finish and most exposed base to the peak. And that seems to have done away with a lot of the traffic.
I guess the challenge I'd see with the most exposed peak then is, couldn't you have something in the center of the building that's gonna be? I suppose it's just gonna be roof line at that point.
Yeah, and most zoning codes I've seen exclude appurtenances like lighting rods, chimneys, things like that. But if you go and measure from the peak of the roof to the finished grade on the largest exposed space of the building, and that came along partially because you had walkout basements. So now that's gonna be all exposed too. And the only advantage I saw was that, well, anybody, like anyone in use should be able to go out there and look at that and say, yeah, that meets our code or it doesn't. Not where you have to get out a calculator, start figuring mean elevation and what's the elevation of the road and all that kind of stuff.
Something else to think of, which we haven't done here, is you can purchase the development rights. You can purchase their right to add a second story or go beyond a certain height. So, like with, when you put your land in a land conservation, you get money to not develop it. It's the same thing where they are paid into perpetuity to not have a second story or to go beyond a certain height.
I think that, you're talking about how to measure the height. I perceive building up the lot, and then put a building on it. We should not only not allow that to be that much higher, but to penalize it. So I mean, just to give you that broad brushstroke to, I understand you need to do some on there, but that's what my.
And with that need, I wouldn't let them do that anyway, because I would say, you can't have adverse runoff onto an adjacent lot. I'd say, show me your stormwater plan that shows you're not increasing the water on your neighbor's property. Now, I will say this, I know there have been projects in the village of Sister Bay that have done that. I met a gentleman a week ago and the poor guy is flooded out nonstop. His sump pump runs nonstop because the neighboring business put a bunch of fill in there and he's having issues. So, I think we're more diligent now when we review things, right? We're looking at stormwater plans and some other things than we did in years past.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, to not rely on that other part of the code to catch that, because there could be some place where somebody builds up and it doesn't impact the storm water, but it would impact, I still believe that building up. But,
Yeah.
I mean, again, trying to think broad brushstrokes of, and maybe that's just not a concern, but should be the same.
I think it's all stuff we have to think about. So, okay, so, that's a good starting point. I don't know if I'll have it in a month. It's budget time.
The discussion on
Right.
this is the B3 area, correct?
This was, in the downtown area, the B3, yeah, just on.
Because really, in the B3, on the water side of the road, you can go from, you know, the yacht club down to the park at the marina, I don't know what the park's called. And the only place that you don't have a view of the water is the village hall, the old village hall standing there. You know, I know it's being saved, but you wanna get picky about stuff, is that should be gone, so you have the full view. Truthfully, because if you're only looking at that side of the road from those points in B3, on that side, nothing else is gonna go in there because it's all owned by the village,
The only thing is Wild Tomato, and
correct?
I think Wild Tomato would have some challenges because where would they park? You know,
Correct. And then if the post office is moved, you know, you're gonna be able to see water from there too. Obviously, there's a parking lot probably, but,
I think.
you don't have that much in the way on that. side of
Well,
the
all
road.
the businesses that go from the Wild Tomato up the hill, so there's several that are
But
on,
that's not B3 then.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's still B3.
I thought it ended right there at Mill.
The Creamery,
That's not two?
Roastbees,
Where's that?
I think B3 goes past, I think it goes up to Bluffside maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, this map is your land use, so don't look at.
No, I
that.
know, I have that one. But yeah, then I agree with it if it goes beyond that,
Yeah,
because you could have, you know, everybody in that.
yeah, I mean, it'd be a beautiful view if they knocked down the Creamery and put up a 35 foot or whatever, like the Door Hotel. View of the bay, it'd be gorgeous, you know, if they would do, and that's what we don't want to happen, you know?
Right.
yeah, and you have a lot of older buildings, you know, you know, historically, you've lost a lot to fire and God forbid that would ever happen again, but you do have some older buildings that could be rebuilt.
Torn down, yeah.
Okay, well, how about if I, like I said, I'll work on that, Let's see how far I get in a month, okay? Like I said, we're doing the, working on the budget, so I don't know how far I'll get. Okay, this next one, we call a historic district, it's really a historic looking district, overlay. It's for the B2 area that is west of Highway 42, so it does not include that area, on the east side, down behind the downtown area. And in summary, we have an issue with B2 right now, and I'm gonna paraphrase this, but the uses are limited, you can't do very much. And you can't do very much with the lots because a lot of those buildings are non-conforming. So they're, you know, they can't meet setbacks, they can't provide parking. They can't rebuild further back because you have the bluff there, so the buildings just kind of sit there and nothing can really happen with them. And you can't, there's not a lot of uses there, so what the overlay does is it says, you know what, we're gonna allow more uses. We're gonna let you keep the current building and not have to worry about setbacks. As long as you maintain it to look like a historic structure, whether it's historic or not, make it look historic. If you wanna put up a new building and you can do it under the old rules, that's fine, but if you wanna have one of these uses, not normally allowed, you can do that, just make sure the building looks historic and that's basically the intent of it, that's really what it's all about. So we've seen this is, I think, the third time we've seen this list. So I think we should go through and talk about what we like and what we don't like, so we can start making some progress on this, okay? The uses. So this is what these are just things came up with. These are uses that could be in that overlay. And what I did was I went back to the era that I think I looked at the age of the buildings that are there and what was allowed in Sister Bay or in Door County during that period. And what we were seeing was artisan shops, okay? I have here such as blacksmithing, believe it or not, there are some blacksmithing shops around yet. But that's like your art, your glass blower, people like that. Bakeries, barber shops, boarding houses, cafes, coffee shops, dance halls and studios, That's kind of big for that area, but that was one of the historic uses in the Razor House. Hotels, museums, small museum, I mean, private schools, you could have a dance school back there in one of those old buildings. Retail stores, cute little gift shopping in old historic buildings, specialty food markets. Other small lot uses, if it can be demonstrated the use existed in Sister Bay during 1880 and 1920. So it's pretty open. It's saying it occurred at that time, we'll let it happen. And if we missed it on the list, make the argument, prove to us that it existed, and we'll consider it.
So be a little pedantic. What if I found a use that was there in 1879? I wonder, does it make more sense to say before 1920? I guess is what it was.
What
Or the-
if it was 1921?
Well, we don't want that, because then we gotta draw a line somewhere. 1921, not a good year. 1920, good. Yeah,
Can we do bed and breakfast?
That's allowed under the current one.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can have a bed and breakfast currently in that district. So pre 1920.
I mean, like, is there any, sometimes there's
I think
unexpected,
that's
is there, I mean, like, was there anything happening before then that we,
Pig farms.
Well, my great grandpa had a soda pop factory in that district. We don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
People are out by our neighborhood and get rid of some of the truck.
Actually, soda fountain would be very cool back.
The soda pop, we bottled soda.
Interesting.
see, I think on the right scale, that could be very quaint. I think if it's, you know, 1,000 square feet or less. Yeah.
Okay.
And keep in mind, they are reviewed by conditional use, right, to make sure they're compatible. So, okay, so, I guess the reason why I had 1880 to 1920, Nate, is that's the architecture that we were going with, but we can certainly do before 1920.
Yeah,
Before 1920? Yeah. Okay,
And I understand why we've got blacksmithing in there, but can we strike that from there? I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it on there, but I know that I have heard people read through this and be like, why are you saying you're gonna have blacksmithing in there? It's just, it doesn't seem like it's gonna do us any good and it's only gonna cause us harm.
well, I guess name them and, well, we can leave
Glass
it.
blowers.
First of all, I will say blacksmithing is like a really cool art form that is occurring in the country right now. We have two of them that I'm aware of in the county.
Yeah, you've got the one, yeah, he's going on PBS on making the sword and all that, yeah.
I can take, that off. So there we go, artisan shops. Sometimes it helps to give an example, so people understand what you're going for.
I understand, I just,
so like, if, say, one of us wanted to open a restaurant in this district, that's one the cafe.
If they were doing a small restaurant, like
restaurant.
Roots or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't have the exact existing code with me to tell you if that's allowed there right now. Let's look-
Parking is relaxed for all of these new uses.
we'll have to,
Yep,
Good.
so we'll get to that one. So let's look at architecture. And again, this is our first crack discussing it. We're gonna bring this back next month, okay? Architecture, no use allowed under this overlay may be established prior to completing a successful architectural review. The applicant shall produce architectural drawings illustrating the development will resemble a structure of similar design in existence, again, between 1880 and 1920. Frame height, because once you get pre-1880,
No, you're
they're
good.
totally different buildings.
you're good, I get that,
Okay.
I was waiting for that.
I was. You already made it.
Frame, height, facade, colors, windows, and other architectural features must replicate the turn of the century period noted herein. The village reserves the right to have a village designated architect review the drawings to ensure it is era compatible. No development shall be approved prior to revising development plans to reflect the village appointed architect's recommendation for compatibility. Cost of services for the village appointed architect's review shall be paid by the applicant. We do that on everything right now. All designs must secure approval via a development agreement. It's pretty common. We do require architectural review right now. A lot of people don't comply with it. This just means I think we're a little more diligent on it. Development agreement right now, we can have, you know, engineer, et cetera, look at it, the applicant has to pay that fee. And we do require development agreements to make sure it locks in, to make sure it happens that way, and future owners know what that property is bound to. So, any concerns on that so far?
Is there an architect in the village that would do this?
There's a lot of architects out there. I don't know
But,
if
I mean,
anyone
at
in the
time-
village would.
Frame,
I don't know if there's one in Sister Bay.
okay.
Landscaping. With every architectural review application, the applicant shall provide a landscape plan which illustrates the following. Again, you don't want to have one of these uses, you don't have to worry about this. You can go with the regular B2. This is just if you want to comply, be part of the overlay. All historic tree canopies shall be preserved. No tree in excess of a 6-inch caliber as measured at chest height shall be removed. And all development shall occur in such manner as to not jeopardize the root system of a tree of 6-inch caliber or greater.
Where did 6 inches come? Curious.
It actually came from, I have to look back at what's in the code, but I was looking at landscaping standards and then also talking to some of the landscapers that we use. We require certain trees that can't be built around, that you can't plant around here, because with rock, you can't plant certain trees, they're just not gonna thrive.
Mhm.
So, keep in mind, this was written, what, in March or April, so you're jogging my memory. I read it somewhere,
Okay,
so, yeah.
I'm sure there's a reason. for
What we're trying to do is make sure, when you go into an older area, you've got those big canopies and they're hovering over. It looks old versus you go down to Highway 57, it's all no trees and shrubs, etc. That's what we're trying to accomplish with this. We're also, as we know, we rank last in Door County of all the communities for our tree canopy. So we're trying to maintain what we have and not lose any more. For every development, one hardwood tree at least 6 inches in caliber shall be maintained or planted so as to result in one tree being located every 40 feet along the front lot line and the same across the rear lot line. That's what we do now. You have to have one tree every 40 feet now.
The 6 inches, that seems to be kind of big. So the smaller that you plant a tree, the greater the chance that it's going to survive. The
Right.
bigger, the less chance it's going to survive. So it's finding a balance on that. If that's where you come across and they say, well, that's where the balance is, that's fine, but I just want to make sure we.
Yeah, it becomes tough in some certain areas where you're planting. What it tells you is don't take your tree down. Don't take the trees down. Because you're not, it's really challenging to put bigger trees back once you're working on a rock. In lieu of a hardwood tree every 40 feet along the front lot line, the developer may install a white picket fence, provided fence is flanked by mature trees at least 12 inches in caliber at the ends of the fence. In other words, leave the trees at the corner of your lot, but you can put the fence in. All property shall be developed per an approved landscaping plan that demonstrates the use of what is perceived as historic landscaping. The plan shall utilize lilacs, roses, perennials, or other vegetation perceived as typical of the area. All landscaping plans require review by the Plan Commission and approval via a development agreement. We do that now on everything. On most things, the village may require a sidewalk be installed dependent on location. Parking. Okay, before we go on, anything on that?
Sounds good, Karen.
Parking. Due to the shallow depth of some lots in the B2 district, it is difficult to meet current parking standards found in chapter 66, section 400. Furthermore, it is acknowledged many of the land uses allowed in this overlay rely on pedestrian traffic, not requiring parking. Non-conforming parking lots may be retained, but shall not be reduced in number. What happens when you reduce it in number, that means you're building on the site and you're probably overdeveloping the site. So you keep it the way it is, but you can't reduce it. If a property is redeveloped or modified, non-conforming parking lots shall only be retained provided the redevelopment or modification does not increase the floor area of the pre-development land use or result in an increase of 25% or more occupancy. So again, you can keep it that way, But if you wanna add an addition, big addition, we're gonna be looking at your.
But then, so we're gonna have the same parking standards if you do. We're looking at the parking, like, we're gonna have the current standard parking apply to that.
Right, if you're gonna, if the modification increases the floor area by 25% or more, we're gonna look at parking. Keep the building same way it is, don't overdevelop, keep the character of those buildings that are there is what it's telling you.
I mean, it's something that I see back there, is there's not a lot of historic buildings that are still there. I think that our realistic goal,
I think there's 9.
yeah, I think, but I think we should look beyond those 9 to say our goal was to have other historically architectured buildings in that area so that those 9 aren't, they fit in with those other 9. I think that's real. We can't go back and put old buildings up.
Right.
So I think that we should reduce, especially in that area. I would be for abolishing parking requirements altogether in that area. That I understand that's a pretty far out there perspective from the rest of the commissioners, but I don't. If they're willing to do this, this is a small area. There is parking around there, and this is very pedestrian accessible.
But we also make provision for that further on, Nate. So what we're saying is, non-conforming lot, keep it the way it is. You wanna do some work on it, keep it the way it is, but if you go over 25%, which means you're now changing the character of that building, now we have an issue. We go on to say on page 3, if you don't have parking on site or sufficient parking on site for employees, again, we're talking existing uses and buildings, provision shall be made that does not rely on public parking areas. The village may require employee parking, employee fee and lieu parking as an alternative. They may require bicycle racks to encourage non-motorized work trips. Here we go, which is I think what you were getting at, Nate, is development on a vacant lot requires the applicant to comply with parking standards that we have, but the plan commission can modify that by a 3/4 majority vote. But only upon finding such modification is necessary to ensure the development is compatible with other uses in the overlay district. And provided a brick or cobblestone sidewalk is installed with the lot parallel to the road to increase the historic appearance of the newly developed lot. So what that's saying is, if the code requires 50, and you can't put in 50, and to be honest with you, we don't want 50 out there, it's really incompatible. The plan commission has the ability to look at what's next door to you, and that becomes your parking standard. That has to be by a 3/4 vote. But then to ensure that it looks historic or fits into the neighborhood, they can also require the certain types of sidewalks.
I think that we need more of a carrot for that, to have this sort of development happen.
Well, it's kind of saying you don't have to do anything, you just have to do what your neighbor does.
You're still saying, but
That's a pretty big carrot. Like, for example, Razor House, no parking on site. You know, if the guy next door came in, the plan commission would say, well, the character of the neighborhood is no parking on site. So I would hope the plan commission would say, well, this is compatible, this is what compatibility in this situation means. And I guess the concern to me would be, what if you have a rogue plan commission that, wants parking lots everywhere?
if you've got a road plan commission, they're gonna be able to do that one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, I don't think you can just say no parking whatsoever, because then they could build wall to wall, lot line to lot line, which is not the intent. The intent is try and get some parking on site for your employees, but let's look at what's going on in the neighborhood and make it fit.
What was happening in 1880 to 1920?
Actually, when you look at the old air photos, some of them are parking on their property, a lot of them are parking on the street. Problem is, we don't have there's not a lot of parking on the street anymore.
In 1880, we don't, yeah, there
Buggies.
weren't cars there. That's
Oh,
what-
no, it's horses and buggies, you've got this. Whether, even if it wasn't a car, they were still parking on the street. When you look at the historic pictures.
I think
And they
that,
took up 2 spaces because you had the horses plus the buggy, which was pretty long.
so having that 3/4 there, I just think that this, it seems a little bit,
Would you feel better like a half?
no, what, the 3/4 majority? That's fine, but I'm saying, let's give the plan commission to say they can, if the plan commission is a 3/4 majority, proves it. Have no parking requirements, so they're saying it depends on what your neighbor is, they're trying. I can see developers looking at that saying, well, I've got to worry about this, well, which one are you gonna look at, how is this actually going to, what's this actually going to be for me? So that's not saying that we're just gonna say you can do it, but be a little bit clear in the code.
Yeah, and we can cross that off. I guess the reason I put that in there is it tells the plan commission, whoever they are, this is what you should be looking at, to make sure it's compatible. You know, because sometimes you don't have plan commissions, you know, you're gonna get a plan commission someday that doesn't know the intent of this. That may just waive all of that, so. We can take it out, or we can leave it in as a guide to the plan commission. We can also take out the part about the sidewalk.
I don't,
No, I like
I
that.
think that
Yeah,
one,
I think sidewalks have to be in.
Yeah.
Because
especially
if
the
you drive
cobblestone
through there,
brick.
Yeah, your biggest fear is hitting somebody, walking in the road. And I just drove through there before I come here and it's terrible. And if you're not gonna have parking, you gotta have someplace for people to walk, to stay out of the road.
So leave that part in.
I don't know, I mean, in Charleston, South Carolina, they don't have parking. So there's like one spot for some, like the owner to park in. There's a parking lot, public parking down the street, some that they have to pay a lot of money. Park there, but in historic areas, generally there isn't parking available, it's just not there.
Yeah.
They park on the street, or you park and you walk in. I mean, even at the White Gull, we don't have parking, and you park on the street and you walk in. It's part of the historical thing, kind of like there weren't parking lots.
Yeah, most of the lots in that B2 area, there is no parking.
Yeah.
I mean, Roots is fortunate, he has a lot behind.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people park on the street there, but he does have a parking lot back there,
Mhm.
but that's rare.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a district that's not even 1,000 feet across.
Small.
So I think that we should allow it to, at least allow the plan commission to have that discretion. The only thing I think of is when we start putting those notes to future plan commissioners. That is what's reviewed by, at times the village gets entangled in lawsuits,
Yeah,
and those notes can have come back to bite us.
yeah. Well, we can take it out. I do have concerns. I will be honest with you. I do have concerns that sometimes we try to make people comply. Oh, okay, you have to put two parking stalls in. That's not gonna be compatible with the neighborhood, making them put in, you know, maybe we say they have to put in 5 or something.
Mhm.
That's not compatible with the neighborhood, so even if he has a room, that is not something the plan commission should be doing in this overlay. Maybe you just say they don't have to provide parking on site.
And say that without even having the majority vote. I'm good with that, but at the same point, I can understand the wanting to have that oversight. To say, yeah, we need to make sure the plan commission looks at this and is okay with it.
What do you think, Ron? About this parking in the historic district?
You know, I've never liked this plan commission with the override on things. You know,
It gets messy.
This is the first place I've
I
ever
think,
worked
I
where
think
they
it
have
comes
such
back to
left.
haunt you sometimes. When. You know, and parking down there, there's never been any parking down.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the residents there, you know, they're parking on the street now. So,
Are we okay with pulling the requirement and then? for
The only
parking?
thing I was thinking of is like, so say, I know Jack and I was talking about maybe developing his property into a 3-story apartment complex or condos or something. I don't know, you know, he's definitely gonna have parking. I mean, I'm not sure what he's gonna do or wants to do or could do, but, That's the only caveat to me is like if someone is allowed to build something like that, how that's gonna impact parking.
Well, we're not saying that they can't build parking, and if you're building a residential structure like that, you're gonna want to build parking, so you
Yeah,
have a place for these, otherwise
yeah,
people
or even just rentals or whatever, yeah, you can have to.
see. I think that they can still build parking if they feel like they need to, but one of the things that really keeps redevelopment from happening is parking requirements. And if you were, let's just look at that particular lot, and there, if that was to have sidewalks put in there, connected, and it was done historically, would it be worth the extra burden on the parking that is down there? Also, if they're actually parking overnight, I guess they could go over on Mill Road and hope they don't get ticketed or they move their car every 24 hours.
How about this, if it's overnight parking, it's reviewed by the plan commission?
If the use requires overnight parking,
Because otherwise, most of them are walking, they're just walking through the neighborhood, they're walking through the downtown area, walking to get their haircut, walking to the cafe. But when it's an overnight use, you have a bigger demand on parking.
For night use,
What do you think of that?
that makes more sense to me.
I'll craft something, we can look at it again, okay?
I still think even in that case, we should have a reduced requirement, but that's something that the plan commission can look at on a case by case basis.
Setbacks. You're existing, you do not have to meet the setbacks. All properties in the B2 district may be redeveloped utilizing the setbacks of the pre-construction development, provided no development occurs in the public right of way, easement, or on an adjacent lot. We do have some that are on the adjacent lot. However, in such scenario, the footprint of the original structure may not be increased. In other words, don't think you're gonna tear it down and put up a Taj Mahal. I get it, some of them are rotten. Pretty bad shape, so if you want, I shouldn't be saying that, but some are in pretty bad shape, so if you wanna tear it down, that's fine, we'll let you rebuild it, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna make this big structure now. And if you're on your neighbor's property, you're gonna have to go on your own property, and that's just,
What about stuff that is built in the right of way like now?
yeah, so that says, provided no development occurs in the public right of way, easement, or on an adjacent lot. So in that situation, I would say they would probably want to go in for a variance.
I
Although
guess,
there's no dimensional requirement to get a variance on.
so I get what scenario I'm thinking is somebody has a building that is in the right of way, which
The Razor House.
I think that they should be able to build within that same footprint on there. Even though they're in the right of way, I don't know if the village can do something to clean that up and
Well, it's the public right of way, so there's gotta be a in my mind, there's gotta be a mechanism for the public to approve something being in the public right of way. So how about a public hearing?
so we're gonna. A public hearing to allow a building to be built in the
I mean,
right of way that's been there for,
This
If the road
1878.
was one way,
but if they're taking it down and rebuilding it, they have the opportunity to make it better. And if they choose not to, and they wanna stay in the public right away, which I'll be honest with you, I don't have an issue with because of the situation back there, but should it not be the public then that has the opportunity to say it's okay to keep that in their right away?
I think if they're building in the same footprint. I think if they try and take any more than it is, I mean, like the public isn't. It's not, nothing is new is being taken from the public.
So let's look at it this way. And I can't remember. Razor House, I think, is on stilts, kind of like I forget what you call it, where, like a sitting room on stilts in the public right of way. But what if he wants to rebuild that Florida thing? Now I've got a 2 or 3 story thing in the public right of way.
so the first floor is not in the public right of way?
If I remember right, and I can't remember, but I think it's like still.
Well,
that's-
that's-
yeah, there's like-
yeah. Yeah.
Posts that hold it up.
Yeah, it's deck posts holding up a floor.
Okay, so if that was then enclosed. Yeah, that's gonna be a taking from the public versus if it is
I just think it should be public hearing, because if you wanna build on your neighbor has some say on that, right? If you wanna build in a public, in the public's property, I think the public should have a right to say that. Cause you're allowing that guy, I'm not saying that house, but somebody, to take away from the public something that is the public's, so why should the public not have a say on that?
I
So-
guess, what, if, and I think that we almost have to do it that way, because I don't know that we can do wording this, as if you do something that's pretty much the same thing, you can do it. I think that's where, there's no language to say that.
Yeah, I think it'd be too great.
Yeah.
I think you'd get in a. Let me play with it, bring it
Yeah,
back,
if they
okay?
replaced it the same architectural look with the posts and stuff, and they leave it the way it is.
And I think that we almost have to review it at that point, because it's, or open up to a public hearing. Or a public hearing, or just review by the plan commission, because it's,
Either someday someone's gonna tear it down and rebuild, or they're gonna put a lot of money into it and fix it up the way it used to look. But they're
I mean,
gonna
I
want
think
that
we'd
same
want it.
footprint.
And I think that's what we'd want,
Yeah.
but we would say. We don't care that you don't meet setbacks, but part of this is in the public right away, so we just have to have a public hearing. Maybe the public hearing says, well, that guy, that's a violation, he put it out there 5 years ago, he should have never been allowed to do it. Not gonna happen, that I can think of out there, but that's an example of why we would do it. Okay, I'll play with that, bring it back. Applicable to developments that meet the setbacks. The plan commission may reduce setbacks to make the new structure appear it was built approximately the same time as the neighboring properties. Setback averaging may be used to determine setbacks. Setbacks shall be determined by considering existing or desired neighborhood development patterns. I left this very loose, which I know drives a lot of people crazy, but basically what you're saying is the plan commission has a lot of latitude to make this building fit the neighborhood. And no, it doesn't say 3/4 volt.
no, I don't think it has to.
All right, height. The total height of a building is that vertical so that in this zone, we're gonna measure it different, okay? These rules are gonna apply to this overlay. How measured? The total height of a building is that vertical distance of the front or roadside of a structure as measured from pre-existing grade along the roadbed nearest the proposed structure or modification to the highest point on the highest roof line. Basically, I'm gonna stand on the road and see how tall you are to the roof peak, okay? Said height limit shall exclude the modifications permitted in section 66. Your cupolas, your spears, etc. like that. It is acknowledged that due to topography, a structure may be higher in the rear or the side of the building not facing the road, and in such situation, the excessive height shall be mitigated by installing era-appropriate fencing and planting additional trees to minimize the view of the back of the structure as seen from adjacent lots. That fencing, canopy size and height to be determined by 3/4 vote of the plan commission. Let me explain, okay? Across from the admin building, that's a hill. So when I stand on the road and I look at that building and I'm like, oh, that height's great. On the back, it could be 60 feet tall. Not saying 60, but it could be pretty tall,
Mhm.
but nobody sees it. So what this is saying is you can we care about what the view from the road is what this is all about. But in the back, we're gonna make you put fences and trees to mitigate that view from the back.
What if you have a road on one side and one side and one side? Like Danko stuff,
Then he has to,
which road do you use?
but it is acknowledged that due to topography, a structure may, well, that's not gonna apply to him. Because he's not gonna be higher in the rear. He's pretty level. The only lots out there are in that, the only ones I think are the bluff and then across from us, across from the admin building. Yeah.
That's a little lesson.
Those are the only ones where you're gonna have that big slope where you could have that tall building. And I'll be, and that's not a bad thing. A lot of old historic structures were very tall on the back, right? They would build up, 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 a lot of like rooming houses, I mean. Think of an old mill, I'm not saying that's what was there, but think of an old mill and how those buildings would look totally different from the back end. Think about it, think about scenarios, that's something we can come back and change, but that's what I have, so. Okay, so height limits, for those properties located in the bluff overlay zone, no structure shall exceed 30 feet in height. In other words, if you're on the bluff side of Bluffside Lane, you're limited to 30 feet, okay? So the Luna View would have been limited to 30 feet as measured from roadbed to the top of the building. Those properties located along Parkview Lane and Parkview Drive, which are the side streets, they're limited to 24 feet. And it's done that way. And I looked at the grid and the elevations and the contours. It's done that way. So anyone on bluff, in the bluff overlay zone, can see over the tops of those on Park Lane and Parkview Drive. For all their properties in the B2 overlay, structure shall not exceed 2 floors. Uninhabitable basements and attics shall not be counted as a building floor. What you're trying to do is not have everything tall, but you're having staged, so you're looking over and out at the water or downtown.
I like it.
That's good. Accessory buildings, with the exception of an era-appropriate one-story freestanding garage, accessory buildings shall be prohibited. A freestanding garage shall not exceed 24 by 24 and shall be architecturally compatible with the primary structure on the lot. Said garage requires architectural review by the plan commission and is subject to the landscaping requirements above. I got that by going through and actually measuring neighborhoods that had old garages and what sizes they were. They didn't have big garages back in the day, if you had a garage.
There were multiple accessory buildings.
You'd have an ice house, maybe a summer kitchen, I don't know about back there, but I don't think we're gonna have any ice houses out here. I mean, the lots just don't have the room. What you're trying to do is keep it historic looking and not congested with a bunch of buildings.
Okay.
Signage, each property is allowed one sign indicating the name of the property or business. Said sign shall be freestanding or extend from the overhang or roof of a porch, but not obstruct pedestrian access or travel. A freestanding ground-mounted sign shall not exceed 24 square feet. An extended sign shall not exceed 16 square feet. The sign shall be made, I gotta define that. The sign shall be made of wood, a pure wood grain in texture, be 3-dimensional, and have a scroll to the artwork. All such signs require design approval of the plan commission chair. Said signs cannot be located in a public right-of-way, easement, or over a property owner. If the sign is a ground-mounted sign, the base of the sign shall be located within a limestone flower bed and landscape to match the landscaping on the lot. So that's what I got from extensive search of historic neighborhoods that have businesses. So you would see the sign, old sign, Chateau Inn or whatever, and they were pretty consistent. You'd always have that scroll, same size, you didn't have the bigger signs, you didn't have the fancier sign supports. Each property is allowed one wall sign adjacent to the primary entrance to the building, said sign not to exceed 16 square feet. The sign shall be wood or metal, no illuminated signage, including open signs shall be, no illuminated signage, including open signs shall be permitted. A sandwich board sign is allowed, provided the signboard is slate, does not exceed 6 square feet, and the frame is made of wood. Said sandwich board sign is not permitted off-site or on a site.
Does that mean, did you mean to say no internally illuminated signage or? Cause I could,
It just can't be illuminated whether inside or outside, it just can't,
so I can't put a light at it, put a light at the sign.
not on your wall sign. Change that.
I'm I'm making sure that's the goal, that,
Yeah.
So the sign
it's-
can't
it's-
have a light on it at night, so people can see the sign. Or just a regular light.
From within.
So say you had a boarding house. You got a sign out front and it's night, you got people walking there, biking there, whatever. And there's a sign out, but it'll be dark and they can't see the sign.
So they would have. I'll work on that, because they'd have their light on outside,
Yeah,
but we don't want illuminated signs are a modern thing. They didn't have illuminated signs back.
yeah,
at
not
the time.
illuminated, but lighted, I mean,
Cast.
yeah,
that's.
Yeah.
Definitely don't want to turn them.
yeah, no, not. those.
Cast on. Okay. Number of uses per lot. Every current lot that was in existence as of the date of the village of Sister adopted zoning, which is 72, I think, or something, shall be considered a separate buildable lot, provided a structure thereon can meet setbacks and contains adequate space for building and required parking. This is a big thing, and this is something I have to explain to you. That's not the way it is right now. This is something that I will be talking to you about housing at a later date. But the way the code is right now is if you have a grandfathered lot built, created in 1950. You have a grandfathered lot in 1950, you have another grandfathered lot in 1950. John owned this one, Sally owned this one. They were always separate lots. They could have built on them, they didn't. And then you buy them and they're now both owned by Susie or Julie. We consider those one lot. Just because you happen to buy both of them. And I've never seen that until I came to Sister Ray, and I'm like, well, that's not really fair, you know, it's still a grandfathered lot. Just because I bought both of them that's not fair that now I can only have one lot. So what this is saying is when that was platted, those were meant to be individual lots. So whether you own one of them or 5 of them, they're all still individually owned lots. And we do have this situation where we do have some old lots where people are sitting on, you go out there and look at their lot and they actually have more than one. So it's saying each lot is going to be able to be developed because that was the intent. And that's also what you saw back in time. In historic neighborhoods. A second use in a building may be allowed, provided the planning commission finds there will be no additional need for parking or the parking demanded can be accommodated on the same property. In other words, we're gonna grandfather you the way you are, we're gonna grandfather your bakery or whatever you want. But if you wanna start having multiple businesses, we're gonna have to talk about this, is what it's saying. Because it may be creating too much of a strain then. So. And that's what I have on this one.
I have a question. Mill Road is a mess. When's that, or Bluff Lane, excuse me, Bluff Lane, Park Lane? When's that gonna be repaved?
Was just on the need about this today, so it's in the CIP, so we'll see if it stays in the CIP. We have $1 million dedicated for 25 and $1 million for 26, because we don't have enough money to do everything at once, and we probably do have to do it in 2 separate phases. But it's, I've already talked to the engineer and I said, you know, if this goes through. And this, let me just say, the timing of this does impact that, because when you're paying an engineer to design a road, they have to know what are the goals, what do we want? I envision us, based on what we do with Mr. Nawrat's property when he came in, he was the man with the stone fence. I envision us telling the engineer, we want this, we want you to design this, but don't touch this stone wall, don't touch this stone wall. No, you're not putting curving, or you're not gonna put parking here, you know, I think we're gonna, in this project, I think we're gonna have to be very hands-on with the engineer on that road design. Or it's gonna look like a modern road,
Right.
and that may not be what we're,
It just,
But if it,
You
if
know,
it
yeah.
stays in the CIP, it'll start again.
yeah, good to know, this is, it's not even pleasant to walk around there now.
It's not even pleasant to drive through.
I go on that once a week, yeah,
All happen.
yeah.
Okay, so if you have thoughts, something you want me to try and look up, work on, send it my way, otherwise I'll make those changes. Get it to you out a week, we'll try and get it out a week again, and we'll do some more brainstorming on it, okay? Sounds good?
Thanks for your hard work with all this, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the good idea, Patrice. Okay, matters to be placed on a future agenda for the committee, official or employee.
Okay, I've got some things here, okay? These are just my notes here. TID, okay, so, tax increment financing district. So you heard Nate say that there's some out on the highway and we're talking about how they don't have sewer and water. I've been talking with Bayard and Tasha had conversations with before she left too. About how to get Lagerquist and Wiltsey into a tax increment district. So we can use those taxes to pay for improvements. And then also how to capture some of the development that's left, very little that's left along Highway 42. And the Christ property in case that's ever developed. And so, long story short, we talked about amending our tax increment financing district. And I wish that we could spend months and months on this, but this is a very fast moving thing. I want to have a public hearing at your August meeting. So I'm gonna send some information out to you ahead of time. It's really we were talking about this today. A lot of places use it as a financing tool, so it's only going to their finance committee. I view it as a planning tool. It's both in reality. I talked to Baird and he said that the, many communities have that public hearing at the planning level. So we're gonna have that public hearing in August, and I apologize, you didn't see it ahead of time, but I just got it yesterday, so. Here's the map in case anybody wants to see it.
I mean, where this really impacts plan is you're gonna see more development in those areas typically. And it's not like it's going to change how planning or zoning is done. It's just gonna be more likely to happen there. And then it really matters far more financially than anything.
So
Yeah.
what do you expect from a public hearing? What do you think people will come and ask or say?
Some people may say, I disagree with their taxes being. I'm gonna generalize, I disagree with their taxes being held and put in a pot to make public improvements. What you're doing is you're taking all those taxes from the school district, the county, et cetera, are foregoing taxes. We're taking all the taxes that are coming in and we're gonna put them in a pot to be used to make improvements in the village. And the law now says you can actually use that money to improve something within that did district. So if you had sinkhole on bluff side, you could take those TIF dollars and apply it towards that. They don't, so somebody could argue that, no, you should be taking all the tax money they pay now and that should right away go into the general fund and it should not be used for public improvements.
So they're gonna,
I don't know why they
two of
would
them
say
since
that.
I've been here and there has not been.
I don't know.
But the people that are gonna get impacted by it are gonna be the school districts. Because we're taking the money so the concept is. We are going to facilitate we are going to have development in this area because we're spending public money on building infrastructure. So we should take the tax difference, the increment, to pay back that public infrastructure. So instead of going into the school districts and everything else, it goes right back to the village for there. I mean, there are some municipalities that will take and give developers money to develop in these areas. Sister Bay has never done that.
They have not, but I do think there's one property we should discuss that, but that's down the road. But so the districts and stuff, we talked to them ahead of time, so I'll be honest with you, I don't know who would if somebody showed up at the public hearing, I don't know what they would object to, maybe because they want to be in the TID, I don't know.
So is that TIF number 1 or TIF number 2?
It would be an amendment to 2.
TIF number 2, okay. And that's gonna include Wiltsey and Lagerquist and
It would
Chris?
pick up the Barbara, so what, it has to be contiguous, right? So it would pick up the Barbara Hall property. It would cross Woodcrest to pick up the Lagerquist, which is the admin building and the fire station. Future site if we ever need it for a fire
I
station.
don't, as much as going through this
And
is helpful, I think we need the plan, the commissioners to see it, so I don't think we need
Yeah.
to worry about putting this in the minutes, because we
Okay.
need to see it.
So then the other thing we'll do at the next meeting is we'll do some more work on the comp plan. And then, we do need to talk about doing a text amendment for the new marina building, okay? At some point here.
Julie, we need to talk about the Ava Court, property. Because of the way that spoke at the village board. I was very upset about that being stalled. What's going on there?
There was discussion about getting it on this, but we do
It's
need to
going
put it,
on the board agenda or a plan?
it would be a plan, it would be the next decision, but there was, I know that you talked to Denise about that, and there's. We shouldn't, we gotta be careful not to talk about it right now, but I understand what you're saying is you wanna have it discussed at it.
Yeah.
So something, there's so many amendments that I see that I think we should address, but. One amendments, and it's not just Paula's property, so I'm gonna say this in general, is. State law requires you to have a safe egress out of a door. Usually, communities will exempt a, let's say 16 square foot landing outside a door, right? We require that 16 square foot landing to meet setbacks. And I am not sure the doors on the second floor, Paula's property can meet that. So at some point, I think we should propose a text amendment. Yes, it will help Paula, but it is the right thing to do anyway, because we should make sure people can have an egress. I mean, if you're, let's say you have a building that's exactly 10 feet away from the lot line and the setback's 10 feet. We would not allow you that egress unless you had a deck, elevated deck, unless you went in and had a variance. You can't deny it. They have to have an egress. So why do you even have a requirement on that? Why don't you just exempt an egress that the size, I'm not saying any size, but the size that is required by state law, by the Uniform Dwelling Code. And that is something I think we need to look at. That doesn't solve all the problems in the world out there, but that is one issue on that property that affects many properties.
Is either yourself or Nate gonna, communicate with this lady about what's happening with that property?
She has not called me, but, and I don't know if she called you or you talked to her.
I'll try calling the back, answer, so we can certainly.
Yeah. She had called me at one point.
I can call her and just,
I just think she should know that we're working on it. We're not ignoring her, you know?
I can let her know. I think she wants to hear from you though, Nate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. That's all I have.
Would be in order,
I'll make that motion.
motion by Harf,
Second,
second by Sample, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed, we're adjourned.
oh, it's early, it's only 7:35.